According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, there are 8.2 million jobs available throughout the United States, resulting in headlines of a national labor shortage. And yet, it still requires at least 160 applications just to land a job, with companies ghosting applicants increasing by over 120%. Raising the concern, what is actually happening in the labor market? Since 1988, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics has used the Job Openings and Labor Turnover Survey, or JOLTS, as a key economic indicator for the labor market. This monthly survey is sent to 21,000 business establishments, tracking job openings, hires, and separations. And while this information is crucial for policymakers, economists, and job seekers throughout the United States, this survey has severe limitations, particularly in accurately defining job openings. To be considered an available job, a specific position must exist along with work available for that position, either full-time or part-time. The job could also start within 30 days, and the employer is actively recruiting outside workers, which could be just as simple as telling your family you are hiring. Alongside these broad guidelines, the Bureau of Labor Statistics claims it only has 90% confidence in the data, which in my opinion, as the benchmark of the labor force throughout the United States, this data point is concerning, especially with the recent revision from the BLS stating the United States added 818,000 fewer jobs in the last year than previously reported. This is the biggest revision in federal jobs data in over 15 years. For context, that is roughly 68,000 Americans every month that on paper were employed.
As Democratic governor of Colorado, I imagine that it's hard as a governor to try to figure out how to plan ahead if you are getting information from the federal government that's not correct.
Well, look, I think America has low unemployment right now, and in Colorado, we actually have below the national unemployment rate. And I hear from companies we're having trouble attracting and retaining people. Our biggest challenge is we need more people to hire.
However, there is another component when addressing the accuracy of this report, and that is the integrity behind the business establishment correctly answering the survey, leading us to the phenomenon of ghost jobs. Defined as jobs that have no intentions to be filled or have previously been filled and just not removed, ghost jobs are the byproduct of a strategic approach to recruiting, resulting in billions of dollars of hidden profits. In a survey of 1,000 hiring managers, Clarify Capital, a New York-based business loan provider, uncovered that 50% of hiring managers admitted they created ghost jobs to keep a talent pool at the ready for when they are actually hiring. And this data is also supported by a recent interview I did with Brian Creeley, a corporate recruiter, career coach, hiring manager, and HR professional for some of the world's largest companies, as well as creator of the YouTube channel, A Life After Layoff, with Brian stating,
an internal corporate recruiter does not like ghost jobs. That usually is not something that a corporate recruiter sitting around going, you know what, I'm going to post a fake job and just collect resumes and waste people's times. It's usually at the senior leadership level, and I will say that usually at the CHRO or the senior director level, I've seen most of the ghost job edicts come down, and usually they come in the form, like the ones at least I've seen, come in the form of, they call them a pipelining rec. A rec, I say rec, just it means a job requisition, like a job posting. So they'll put together and they'll want to run these pipelining recs, and especially when they've I've had companies that I've worked at, they laid people off, and then they'll say, well, let's just put a bunch of pipelining recs out there and we'll just collect candidates. So when we do decide to start hiring in the future, that we'll be able to get a head start.
And while companies are incentivized to harvest a talent pool, they are also obtaining and selling your personal data through these applications. Unlike the European Union, which has strict laws stating organizations can only access, process, and retain personal data if it is lawful, meaning the data requested actually serves in the recruitment process, the United States does not have a clear law and falls more on the practice of business ethics, where generally, if you accept the terms and conditions in the application process, you are ultimately relieving your rights to your own personal data that can now be sold to data brokers. With American journalist and author Bob Sullivan stating Equifax, with the aid of thousands of human resource departments across the country, have assembled what may be the most powerful and thorough private database of Americans' personal information ever created, where on a weekly basis, 75% of Fortune 500 companies, 85% of federal government workforce, entire state governments and agencies, courts, colleges, and thousands of small businesses nationwide feed information into these databases. With Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, Oracle, Walmart, Twitter, AT&T, and Harvard Law School all providing employees personal information, such as date of birth, social security number, job title, salary, pay raises or decreases, tenure, number of hours worked per week, wages by pay period, health insurance coverage, dental care insurance coverage, and unemployment claim records. And while companies can also sell your personal information as an official employee, the magnitude at which these companies can harvest and then sell your data at mass through a simple job application, and then put you into a pool of candidates to save on recruitment costs later down the road. I mean, we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar incentive. With companies with the highest attrition rate, job openings are routinely never closed, as the expectation is that they will soon need a new candidate to fill the role. For Amazon, this even comes by design, as Jeff Bezos encourages high turnover rates, believing that workers who had been at the company for too long would become complacent and see their productivity decline. Amazon's reported goal is to filter out the bottom 6% of performers to avoid a march to mediocrity. Amazon's management also encourages high turnover in their tech and corporate offices by falsifying employees' performance ratings and placing them in a productivity program called Focus. Once employees were placed in Focus, it was incredibly difficult for them to get out and were often either fired or encouraged to resign. The main goal is to instill fear into the employees to work fast and keep labor costs low with a lack of seniority. However, with a turnover rate of 150%, this has become an incredible expense of nearly $8 billion a year, once again leading to another multi-billion-dollar incentive, as companies such as Amazon are actually saving billions of dollars by not having to consistently open and close job listings, or having to consistently staff recruiters, or having to give extra resources to HR. Over the past few years, many organizations have taken strides to build diversity, equity, and inclusion into their policies and hiring practices. However, in certain cases, these initiatives have been faced with criticism by prioritizing appearance rather than actual change, with none other than Wells Fargo being involved in yet another lawsuit. From 2021 through 2022, Wells Fargo implemented a policy requiring a slate of 50% diverse candidates to improve DEI, particularly in roles with salaries over $100,000. However, Wells Fargo is being accused of conducting fake interviews with diverse candidates for positions that had already been filled, or for positions the company knew the candidate was not qualified for, simply to check the DEI policy box. Unfortunately, Wells Fargo has faced multiple accusations of such practices. In 2018, Tony Thorpe, a senior manager for Wells Fargo Advisors in Nashville, stated his boss and human resources manager told him that if he found a financial advisor with recruiting and the advisor wanted to bring a sales assistant along, it was permissible, but the assistant job had to be posted publicly. Thorpe then stated he was instructed to reach out to colleges and business associations in the area where he could meet with non-white candidates for the assistant job. Thorpe admitted he never conducted a fake interview, but was required to document that he had tried to find a diverse pool of candidates, even though he knew exactly who would get the job. And with Wells Fargo's trial date being set for January of 2026, this not only wastes time and creates false hope, but ultimately completely derails any efforts of being able to simply just hire the best candidates for the available role, unfortunately creating a whole nother reason for companies to be incentivized to create ghost jobs, to simply check a box. This is also one of the largest reasons why companies do not respond back to candidates, as it is usually the legal counsel or C-suite that prohibits feedback, as many employers don't want to say anything that might be construed as discrimination. According to Federal Acquisition Regulation 31.205-34, candidate recruiting costs are entirely tax deductible. That is job postings, help wanted signs, HR resources, and ultimately every component of the hiring process, as long as it is not an advertisement for the company's products and it meets the requirements of a job opening. one that is available and has work to be done, can be started within 30 days, and is actively recruiting, ultimately making it near impossible to prove any sort of malicious intent. With the Society of Human Resource Management stating the average cost to hire was $4,700 in 2023, with employers stating realistically the amount can sometimes be 3 to 4 times the salary being offered. So if you hire someone for a $50,000 position, you could potentially be writing off a $150,000 expense. But you can also write off all of those expenses if it doesn't result in a hire. So as we begin to consider the multi-billion dollars of incentives that companies have when creating fake jobs, to be able to harvest and sell your personal data, to be able to artificially create a talent pool, to be able to have a supply and demand situation to where they can dictate wages, to be able to create fake interviews to just check boxes for your shareholders, or to be able to just have an endless cycle of new candidates without having to pay recruitment costs and saving billions of dollars. And all of this is done as a tax write-off. We're talking about a labor market that is more incentivized to create fake jobs than to actually provide available jobs for candidates. While leading up to the 70s, corporate culture was about reinvesting into the employee, offering higher wages, pension plans, and adequate training for career trajectory. But unfortunately, by the late 70s, a business's main objective was to cut costs and serve shareholders, with economist Milton Friedman famously arguing that the only social responsibility of a business is to increase its profits. Today, 70% of hiring managers responsible for posting ghost jobs believe it to be morally acceptable, with 38% of them specifically doing so to create false hope for an overworked staff. This mindset of sacrificing everything for the bottom line and for the pockets of the shareholders has ultimately left us with a hollowed out nation. If you strip everything of all of its resources, you get a very toxic and unhealthy environment, one that is more convenient to place blame on older and younger generations than it is to actually address the issue. One that may make us feel a little disappointed that 818,000 false jobs were created, but not surprised. One that uses these institutions designed to help Americans instead as a weapon of propaganda. One that makes us question our own moral integrity, as bills ultimately need to be paid. One that actually makes it even more difficult for companies that do want to make a difference to have the tools to be able to do so. So in conclusion, as we have broken down the major incentives that companies have when creating fake jobs, and you couple that with a flawed survey that is the JOLT data, as it is dependent upon business ethics that are prioritizing greed and deceit, I truly believe that the 8.2 million jobs available throughout the United States is enormously exaggerated. I don't think it is remotely close. And I think that if we saw a revision that was accurate to what the BLS recently did, I think we would see another massive number. So when we have all of this greed, deceit, lies, dysfunction, what happens is you have an immense amount of individuals completely check out of the labor market, which they are now called not participating in the labor force, which ultimately makes the unemployment numbers look better. I think this entire system is completely propped upon just a house of cards. I do not think that anything that we could say, that we are seeing currently is accurate. I think the fact that we still have to wait until February 2025 to get the accurate reporting of the numbers that we just recently saw, I think that just shows that we are truly a part of a broken system that is taking advantage of individuals that are trying to get some sort of job to be able to get a decent wage to be able to pay their bills and just live a life. I think that this is absolutely disgusting. I think that it is unfortunate. And it puts me in a hard place because in conclusion, I want to be able to promote or provide some sort of solution or some sort of tips. But I believe it is not the right thing for me to do to say, here are 3 resume and keyword adjustments for you to use, or something of that nature. I don't think any of that is relevant because this entire system is broken. So I think ultimately it puts me back into the same position, and that's what I'm building my channel off of. It's a way that I live my life, and I believe that ultimately it is the best advice that we can get in a system that is broken, that is as broken as we are participating in, and that is to continue to do your best. It is really important that we begin to stand up and fight for our morals, that you stand up and you fight for the person in front of you, that we can be a shoulder to lean on. The best thing that you can do right now to make a change is to just realize that you are not responsible for this dysfunction. I think it is very easy to get incredibly discouraged and believe that you are not enough at this time, but that is not true. I hope that this video was able to provide just another multifaceted approach of why this is not an efficient system that is not intended to serve Americans. That is as clear as day. There's not much more that I can say, and I really apologize that while I might be able to provide what's happening, I fail to deliver on the solutions. But I hope that as I mature and as I begin to experience this and as more information comes, I can begin to complete that cycle. I wish you guys all the best of luck. Again, we just have to do the best that we can, and it's really important that we begin to fight for the common good. I hope this video provided value to you as always. Thank you so much for your time. Bye-bye.
Are you saying we shouldn't help our customers?
The law requires that I answer no.
We're supposed to help people.
We're supposed to help our people! Starting with our stockholders, Bob! Who's helping them out, huh?